I haven't had a new keyboard in 25 years. It's time to change that. This keyboard is legendary, but it needs a little bit of an introduction because it's kind of obscure. And I really hate this part of nerd culture because it's like, oh, I really like this thing. And then they proceed to explain it to you, and it's this horribly obscure thing that no one's ever heard of or cares about. And it's like, I feel like that you probably wouldn't like that if it wasn't super obscure. But I've been using a Model M keyboard since before I was a teenager. Model M keyboard, originally shipped with later, like 1980s, like vintage 1980s IBM computers. And it was a keyboard that was engineered to survive the nuclear holocaust. And fun fact, it's such a good keyboard that like some of the engineers that originally worked on it, on what became Lexmark, bought the molds and the tooling and stuff when all of that manufacturing went overseas, or went completely overseas because they were manufactured in Ireland and Mexico. And that became Unicomp, which is not too far from where I am. But this is not about Unicomp because Unicomp was doing the industrial thing, not really as much of like the fan stuff. And there's a Unicomp keyboard behind me. I've got some more. Listen, I've got an extensive Model M collection. I mean, I'm going to show you my Model M collection first. But to be sure, this keyboard is Model F, which came before the Model M. And but it's been reworked, it's been reimagined. The patents have all expired, the buckling springs, and so some super nerds that were obsessive to the nth degree, far more than Unicomp, have revived the Model F, which is the predecessor to the Model M, and incorporated USB and in-key rollover, and we're gonna take a look at that. That's what I've got here. But first, we'll show you my Model M collection. The point of my collection was to make sure that I would have a Model M until I die, which I'm figuring is about 85, give or take. So I want to be able to use a Model M until I'm about 85, replacing my keyboard every 5 to 10 years. So in the beginning, when I was like, I haven't had a new keyboard in 25 years. Well, new, yeah, but this keyboard is new. This is the F77. This is the ultra compact version. There's some different versions on the keyboard. Now, you know, with level 1, sometimes level 1 buys stuff, sometimes our forum users buy stuff, sometimes companies send us stuff. This is purchased with my own money. I didn't even expense this to level 1. That's how insane that I am. So in the box, you get the keyboard. It's well packed. You also get a dot matrix printout, just printed on the old school. Yeah, it's even hard to get this kind of paper anymore, relatively speaking, because nobody uses a dot matrix printer. It's attractive, several page guide. There's some key inserts here and an extra buckling spring paddle, or it's not really an extra, you can sort of rearrange some of the keys and get some stuff. 4 rubber feet and a USB Type-C cable. Yes, the Model M is a USB Type-C. It comes with a space bar. You know, I've got the attractive black model here. This is from an era when all things were beige, and so it's a beige space bar. But for my collection, I do have the incredibly rare black Model M. So this one was manufactured in 1990 Switch by Maxi Switch. So, but it's still that buckling spring technology. It is a different switch mechanical component than, you know, like your standard issue Cherry MX type switches or anything like that. And you can see that this keyboard is quite a bit smaller. It's a little bit reprogrammable. You can configure like what you want this over here to be, numeric keypad or arrow keys or whatever. I'm gonna have it sort of be arrow keys in an embedded thing, you know, exciting times. But black keycaps, and I really am tempted to use the black keycaps on the keyboard, but you know, I don't know. And then of course the spacebar. Now the thing that I'm curious about is, so they do actually have the keycaps, and these are fresh, brand new injection molded keycaps. They just haven't gotten the die sub stuff going yet. You know, they've redone the injection molds, and it took a long time for these keyboards to ship. I think my serial number is like 385 or something crazy like that. So I've been waiting on this for a while. And also they're ridiculously expensive, like insanely expensive. Like I really, like with the whole global situation, you know, sort of being what it is, I would not have ordered this, but I ordered this before the global situation. The spacebar is exactly precisely the same, except I have a black spacebar. This means I'm gonna need to clean these keys. It's glorious! All right, we're gonna clean these keys. It's fine, just not at the current. Ah! Okay. I can hear you screaming through the monitor. It's fine, good Lord. Definitely gonna be the most attractive F77. Alright, so our donor keyboard has given up its keys, and it needed to be cleaned anyway. It's a little overdue for cleaning, about 10 years overdue for cleaning, or so. Do you know how rare these are? They're almost as rare as the non-numeric keypad version of the Model M. And would you get this? I had this, there was a split Model M, like it's like the Microsoft Natural keyboard, but it's split. Yeah, it predates the Microsoft Natural keyboard. And I traded it to a guy for the 8800 GTX. I didn't find that Model M particularly comfortable, and I really wanted an 8800 GTX. It was an EVGA 8800 GTX, which I still have. But I kind of regret trading the split Model M for the 8800 GTX, but it was a good deal at the time. You might be wondering, what are the black and white inserts? Well, some of the keys, like the double wide keys, like Shift, the white things sort of help guide the keys, so they give you all the inserts no matter how you want to configure your keys. And there's a bunch of different layouts that you can choose from, but you can also reprogram it. All right, let's go wash our keys. And there we are. Look at that. There's something not quite right about the spacebar. But other than that, it's fine. Here's a sound test for you. I've got the classicest of classic Model M's, 1984. This one was vintage April of 1988. They hadn't really started trying to cut manufacturing costs. It's very satisfying. The space bar bottoms out with a sort of a heavy thunk. This is a Japanese Model M. These were popular in the 90s. The Japanese Model M is great because it's got different meta keys that you can reassign for functions. So it's like, oh, I've got an old Model M, but no Windows key. Or Super, if you prefer. Or Meta Green. It's such a tiny spacebar. Definitely a different and distinct feel from the super ancient Model M, even though it's also a Model M, but this is more akin to some of the later generation Model M's, and also pretty similar to the Unicomp Model M's. And with the Model F, for my fingers, it feels like they've replicated the feel of the earlier, like the pre-Model M, the Model F, which is, hence the name Model F, even though this has got a curved back plate and some other cool, nice features. If you want a pure Model F, you can get that from Model F keyboards. It's sort of a flat plate, but mechanically what I'm saying is this keyboard feels like the kind of keyboard that shipped with the IBM XT and the IBM AT, which is what they were going for. So it's a little different than the Model M. The Model M is a little more refined, not quite as loud, but still the tactile feedback that you can only get from a buckling spring mechanical keyboard like this. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about what's under the hood with this keyboard. I mean, it's a Model F, so 1980s technology under the hood. No, it's got a modern USB controller. It's based on XWhatsit, which has a pretty nice GitHub page. It's open source. There's a lot of utilities. You can download the utility. I'm running it here on Ubuntu, and it's totally programmable. I'm using the lower right control as a function key, and so even though this keyboard doesn't have multimedia keys or even function keys, I can use that lower right control key as a function key. And so like function F5 or function 5 presses F5, function 1 presses F1, and so on. But function D, that's a multimedia key, so that's pretty awesome. You can also add additional overlays to the system. So like the keys that are just above the left and right arrow keys, which are not mapped on this template, I've got mapped to more function overlays so that I can do things like run my Vim macros, or if you're into WoW macroing or other games that you play or whatever. I mean, I got that new cool Aqua system from ASRock that's the top end 10th generation insanity machine for gaming, and so I can just put all the macros I want on my keyboard. You can also toggle permanent overlays, so you could keep the alphanumeric part of the keyboard the same, but change the 3-column keypad on the side. So if you wanted to toggle between numlock, numlock on and have that be one overlay, and numlock off, have that be another overlay or another function overlay, you can totally do that. And it's open source, so you can customize it however you want. You want to do the Dvorak layout? Not a problem. You can totally do that. Everything is completely reprogrammable. And this little handy program will show you all of the keys and when you click them, and it's useful for diagnostics and making sure everything is working correctly. I had a little problem with the lower right arrow key. I'm still sort of troubleshooting that, but until I figure that out, I've mapped the key above it to be the right arrow key. So it's the only key in column 16. I don't know what's going on. And this design magic is the magic that lets you have an in-key rollover, Model M-like, Model F, if you will, keyboard. Yeah, in-key rollover, meaning I can press any combination of keys and it's going to be captured. Overall, this product does feel like a handmade product, and if you didn't already order one, you're going to be waiting a while to get yours. I would still be waiting on mine, as a matter of fact, because I ordered the die sub keycaps, and figuring out how to manufacture die sub keycaps, that is keycaps with this kind of a label that won't wear off, they still hadn't quite figured out. That was sort of the last manufacturing step, and so that's why some of them took forever. Of course, if you get it with blank keycaps, or if you pre-ordered it with blank keycaps, then that was the thing, but it was a lengthy pre-order. Over a year. Like 18 months, give or take. Still, this keyboard, it does feel artisanal. I mean, it's an artisanal keyboard that was, hand forged by the Sherpas in the, no, it was made in China. But it does feel like a handmade product, and it does feel ultra premium. Definitely a collector's item. Definitely a little bit of an indulgence on my part, but overall A+. The only thing that I had trouble with was, for some reason, the overlay was stuck on when I first hooked up the keyboard. So what that means is you can change how this little sort of 10 key area works. I've got it configured for, page up, page down, and the arrow keys, but you can turn numlock on, and then this becomes a numeric keypad. It's actually programmable. There's the source code for it is fully open. You can download it from GitHub. You can reprogram it however you want. But in the default configuration, I think you can toggle between a couple of different modes. So I just fiddled with it using this control as a function key, so you can use that to control some of that. And so eventually I fiddled with it, and it's like, okay, I got the overlay to turn off, and then everything was working correctly, because with like whatever it was like stuck on, and so like pressing D was like mute and unmute. So maybe this key was stuck, or the flipper was stuck or something. I don't know. The other thing was the space bar. So this spacebar that was a donor from a black Model M, I ended up having to swap its little metal bar. So like the metal bar is there, so if you press way on the side of a key, it'll still work correctly. For some reason, the metal bar that was included that went with this spacebar was bent a little bit or something, and so it was binding in kind of a weird way. So I'm gonna keep that metal bar and this spacebar together. Some Model M's actually have an extra spring. So like if you look, there's a circular cutout on the side of the spacebar. Some Model M's actually did have a very weak extra included spring, some models, to be able to do that. Another feature that reminded me of is you can actually have a solenoid, which is like an electromagnetic clicker. In case this isn't clicky enough, when you press a key, IBM actually added a thing to make that sort of even more mechanical tactile feedback, because when they originally designed the Model M, it was to give you the typewriter feel, because they were using the same kind of keyboard on their latest generation typewriters. And you know, the typewriter is a very satisfying, clunky, mechanical feel. So the links that we'll go to reproduce those kinds of experiences. But overall, it's a premium product, definitely carries a premium price tag. It's a labor of love, but I can always appreciate a labor of love like this. I'll probably keep a thread going on the Level 1 forums about this keyboard, and so if you picked up this keyboard or one of the variants of this keyboard or even the original Model F, which is, you know, 17 inches of plastic surrounded by keyboard, come to the Level 1 forums and post pictures. Post pictures of your battle station. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. You know, like I say, I don't want to encourage too much the geeking out on esoterica, but there's just no replacing that buckling spring mechanism. Oh, it feels so good. I'm Wendell. This is Level 1, and I'll see you later.